There's no better feeling than a personal win, and the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you do just that. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and NIL Game Changers.
Speaking of great people, one of my favorites, Neal Coolong. Sir, welcome.
That's as good a day as I am. Up in the air with the NFL. It's kind of crazy. There was just a big trade. I don't know if you happened to see it, but Adam Schefter reported that the Panthers have traded wide receiver Deontay Johnson to the Baltimore Ravens, something that I'm sure Steelers fans will really enjoy, considering they'll get to see him twice now in the coming weeks. Kind of a crazy move and a crazy season. It kind of seems like there's going to be more activity at the trade deadline here than usual.
That's why they didn't trade Anthony Richardson. All right. But in order to, they'd have to inform him, which means they'd have to get him out of bed.
Hopefully get him off the treadmill if he's not there. It's funny you bring that up, though. We were just discussing that. And with Richardson, the announcement being that the Colts will bench him for veteran Joe Flacco this Sunday against the Vikings, a game that I am going to, and now I get to see Joe Flacco playing and not Anthony.
There you go.
You can't be an NFL quarterback and tap out because you're tired. And you certainly can't go and tell the media that's why you took yourself out. There's a learning opportunity here, I think, for Anthony Richardson, and it's probably the right route. You have to do something. It's difficult to do that without public-facing consequence. Most of the players on the Colts wouldn't have a job if they did that. So to act as if it's kind of casual, not a big deal, that's sending a really bad message. And to Richardson's credit, I don't think that he acts like a prima donna or anything. I think maybe this is just something a young quarterback didn't know. Plus, isn't the rule of thumb, you know the situation. It's 3rd and long at that point, after he just went running around. Whatever it is that happened, don't you grab a guy who's not going to be in the package you're going to call and tell him to fake an injury? At least buy a couple, 2 minutes or so to kind of catch your breath. That's the veteran move. And those are the kinds of things the younger players need to learn. And sometimes you kind of have to learn it the hard way, which kind of seems like is what's going to happen with Richardson this weekend and beyond, maybe.
Just have a signal to the sideline. I need a running play here. Okay?
I think they even did. I mean,
they did. They ran the ball with Flacco when he came in.
Yeah, it's situational awareness. You recognize what the situation is. They're not gonna, they're not gonna ask Richardson to gun down the field on 3rd and 19 or whatever it was in the middle of the game. They're probably going to hand it off. But there's a variety of ways to handle the situation. None of which, in my opinion, are above. You're a 23-year-old professional athlete. You can't get that tired, okay? Not at the quarterback position. A running back who just cracked off 2 consecutive 20-yard runs, you're taking him off anyway, whether he wants to come out or not. You need somebody fresh in the game to kind of show that you're still going to do that. But you take your quarterback out in that situation, the reverberation of that in your locker room, in the stadium, across the league is really loud. And that's, again, I think that the issue is Richardson probably was not aware of that. And if he wasn't, I don't know what he's doing. But, yeah, you've got to probably discuss a few other things. You cannot that shouldn't be the situation in the first place. I would hope that you're in shape enough that you can handle that. At the very least, you're going to be breathing heavy, but you get 35, 40 seconds. When you're in peak physical condition, that's enough time to catch your breath. He should have been fine. For him to take himself out right away suggests to everybody he's not in shape. And that might not even be true. It's just That's not how you handle that. This is part of dealing with the adversity of the game. You've got to be able to tough through that. And that's, again, it's a lesson he's going to have to learn. Kind of seems like, just looking around social media, a lot of people are more inclined to protect him than anything. But, like, I can't say this loudly enough. You're not going to hear this from the players. But you ask any former player off the record right now what they think of that, I promise you their reaction is a lot stronger than mine. You're the leader of the team. You're the guy that the franchise is going to give every benefit of the doubt to. You're eventually going to get a ginormous paycheck, even if you are completing 45% of your passes. You can't do things like that and keep the rest of your team. Something had to be done. And it's a learning opportunity for Richardson. It's kind of a bump in the road over the course of what I think is going to be a very good career. But it's definitely something he needs to kind of get in his head now.
No, you can't. You're going to go back to the huddle, and you're going to look at your offensive line, who, by the way, never gets switched out, and you're going to tell them you're tired? Really?
Yeah, the linemen tap out. They're not coming back. And that's not even like a Wally Pipp thing. We don't want you if you're not in shape, okay? You need to be prepared and ready to get on the field. You know, I've got my family Thanksgiving football game in a couple weeks now. I'm going to have to get into better shape than what I'm in right now to probably play that, because we don't get to tap out, even though half of us do anyway. That's not a big deal. That's expected. You're a professional. It's the middle of the game. It's the middle of the season. You're a playoff contending team. Your team needs you out there. You simply have to be out there. And your job does not require you at that point to be at your absolute peak 100% ability to sprint 50 yards down the field. The one thing they're not going to do, they know that you're probably tired, whether you're admitting that or not. They just saw you. They know you can't. They're not going to call a quarterback draw. Okay, you're going to hand the ball off. You're going to be fine. You have to know that. But to tell everybody not in shape enough to do this, I need a break, guys. Just hang on. I need a break. While they're out there doing all this, keep in mind, he wasn't the only one that ran on that play. Those receivers go 30 yards down the field and 20 yards coming back to try to block when they see their quarterback outside of the pocket. They just moved a bunch as well. They've got to come back to the line of scrimmage. They moved a lot more than you did. They do that in every play. And I'm not saying that they're special or anything. It's just they prepare themselves. They are running constantly. They have to be in a certain cardiovascular shape to play. If you're not that at your age, it's inexcusable. You're going to lose a lot of the locker room, and perhaps fairly so, because this is the one thing you absolutely can control. And there's lots of different ways that you can just kind of say, look, tap the hat, pull the chest, whatever. They'll call a running play. Stay on the field. They're not going to run you again. But to make a big scene of it like that, and then to not even try to cover it up after the game and tell everybody, now my coaching staff is okay with me taking plays off, it doesn't work for anybody. That's just a bad look for the entire organization. I'm sure that's behind truly why they're doing what they're doing.
I'm going to get the Steelers involved. I got one more about this, though. Is part of that, when you're watching a game and you get to the fourth quarter, I realize rotating to keep guys fresh. I got to keep Cam Hayward fresh, got to keep TJ Watt fresh. But the idea is in the fourth quarter, okay, now, here we go. But guys like Watt, Bosa, Hayward, okay, Aaron Donald, who formerly played in the league, they're still rotated out at times in the fourth quarter. Does that make everybody in the field think that they too can tap out? I mean, seriously, that they too can tap out? Because you're letting Bosa do it. Why not me?
It's funny because I was thinking of you last night when the Steelers clinched the win over the Giants with an interception on a play that something called Jeremiah Moon was rushing off the quarterback's right side. Not TJ Watt. There is a strategic advantage in a pass rushing situation, especially when the previous drive they're facing the same thing. This is going to be all passing down the field. Your thoroughbreds, the guys that need to make those plays, it's not so much that I'm sure TJ Watt wants to be on the field. Anybody that wants to make the money of the top edge rusher in the NFL wants to be on the field on third and throw at the end of the game. It's more a matter of making sure that they are fresh enough to be able to get after the quarterback and recognizing strategically odds are good you're going to be playing in this type of game a few more times. Right. Wearing him down over the course of the year might not help you late in the season. And that's all projective. It's not to suggest this is absolutely going to happen, but is it wiser to give him a play or two if they're backed up? If the opponent is on their side of the field, there's still time on the clock. They're probably going to need to complete more than one pass in order to beat you. So earlier in the drive, is it better to just make sure he's checked, he's ready, got some fluid in him because, they're going to start going hurry up after a bit. He's going to have to be ready for that. I think that makes a little bit of sense. I don't know exactly what the rules of rotation are on for any of the players that you mentioned, but we have seen T.J. Watt sub out a few of those plays. That said, there's never a bad time for an interception. There's never a bad time for a sack. There is something to be said about these are the money downs, And T.J. Watt, if anybody, and I've seen a few of them, Antonio Brown comes to mind, but T.J. Watt is one of the most extraordinarily conditioned athletes on the planet.
No doubt. I agree.
He has played an enormous amount of football in his career, and he still looks fresh. He's still, as you saw last night, he's still playing at that high-end all-pro level. He is able to handle that. They're going to watch out for him, understandably so. He's human after all. And in some cases, you got to protect him from himself. He's got to be able to go T.J. Watt speed on those plays. So you make sure that he can do that. But I don't think it's more than one or two plays. It's also not a situation where they want him coming back to the alignment and then not rush the passer at all because he's completely exhausted. Right. Anthony Richardson could have handed the ball off. He basically is taking a play off with that. Watt needed to win that game for the Steelers and, pretty much did on, previous drive anyway. It didn't work out so well, but he made the kind of plays that he's been making his entire career on those, as Tomlin would say, on those money downs. You earn the ability to be out there playing those downs, and that, as cliche as this sounds, that starts the day after the season when you're working on your conditioning. You're putting in the work to be physically fit, to be able to burn at that level anaerobically and get after the quarterback sprint after sprint after sprint when perhaps quarterback is tired and can't avoid him anymore. So he just goes down. Or for whatever reason, the game plan is to leave your tackles on an island and put your tight end and your running back in patterns on every single play and allow Alex Highsmith to have the greatest game of his career because your tackles can't handle the physical onslaught that the Steelers' edge rushers are giving them. And conditioning is a vital part of everything. And managing that conditioning, it's a tough, delicate balance, but a coach needs to be aware of those kinds of things. And it's an area I think probably Brian Dable failed in pretty remarkably last night. That led to another loss for them.
Right. The Steelers, look, in this league, one of the keys is you need to win the games you're supposed to win. The Steelers are supposed to win last night's game. Right. What did you see that allowed them to keep the ship rolling and get them to first place?
It was not a clean game for them. And as easy as it would be to kind of go into a rant on the officiating, I thought, we've discussed this as well. They're offensively in particular, they are really calling it tight compared to what they have in the past. Yeah. I've never seen illegal motion called with that little of reason. The purpose of illegal motion is to not allow a player to hide where he's going. If he's in motion and the ball is snapped as a defender, you don't know where he's going to be. That's an unfair advantage. If you get to that point and you're basically stopped, I know the rule says you got to pause for 1 second, but it's not as if they've got a stopwatch out. He was more or less stopped. That fits the spirit of the rule. And the fact that they would flag that in that situation to call that back, that one, of course, was on the Giants. To me, that's intentional. That you're really trying to get offenses to kind of get reeled in on things. And it's silly. It just kind of slows the game down. That said, the Steelers, with Russell Wilson, I feel like they've converted more opportunities to set themselves up positively. You get kind of fluky situations like George Pickens somehow managing to get the same foot down twice, which I don't know about you. I don't know I've ever seen that before.
Neither have I.
That was really kind of strange.
Never have.
But
that was weird.
The first thing I said, though, was it is not 2 feet. The rule is both feet. It's in the rule book. They do not say 2 feet. Both feet have to come down. That's the correct call on that. And unfortunately, credit the defender. They did what they're supposed to do. Pickens is – go ask James Franklin. I am certain the Penn State football team, their receiving group, works on getting their toes down. That's the way they're taught. If you're up in the air and you catch the ball, you're pointing your toes straight down. They're meant to come down together. You're not supposed to do one and then the other. Pickens kind of lost control of his body a little bit. I'm not trying to rip on him for it, but that's a touchdown that didn't come off the board. It came off the board. There was another one that came off the board. They put themselves into position to make those plays, but they failed a little bit more than you would like to finish. That said, they scored 26 points. They were able to kind of make the plays they needed to, especially in the second half. Defensively, they picked it up at the end. I just think overall what you're seeing is the collection of just another play, maybe 2 per drive going their way that wasn't before and hasn't been for the last 4 years. I really think that's the difference. The general sense is that the Steelers have this 2015 or 2013 Broncos offense. They're marching up and down the field now. Like, they are pretty much maybe a shade above average now. But that's how bad they've been. It looks so holistically different now, simply because they're doing a little bit more. And I think Wilson, you're seeing the leadership on the field, off the field. He's getting more guys involved. I don't know if you were aware, Van Jefferson is still on the team. He had 4 catches last night.
Sure did.
I think that's 2 more than he had up to this point in the season. Yep. So Darnell Washington had a career game. More guys are getting involved. They're getting more out of their offensive line because their quarterback is not sitting in the pocket all day waiting for the obvious thing to open up. Wilson is reading and reacting correctly to the situation. Not playing perfectly, not throwing every ball right there, but I like the way Tomlin said this after the game, too. There's a bit less rust on him today than there was last week. Yeah, that's accurate. I think that's fair. Wasn't a perfect game for him. Poor execution early on. They didn't start off particularly well. The first drive was great, but they stalled out a bit and weren't making those kinds of plays. But they're picking up a 15-yard gain instead of a 5-yard gain, which kind of seemed to be the way they used to do things. They seem like they can compete on 3rd and 8 now, whereas before it was pretty much, a field goal or a punt is coming next. They've got a little bit more drive than they did. There's more confidence going on with the team, and that's reverberating down to the defensive side of the ball, which I don't think that was a great game for them last night. They got gashed on the ground, made plays at the end, which is great. They're really designed to do that, but when they get all 3 phases of their game, we of course saw it again with special teams, another huge play from them. When they get all 3 of those going, I think they're a very difficult team to beat, and they've built themselves for that. But it's really going to come down to the offense's ability to get one more touchdown out of these field goal drives and hold on to the ball a little bit more, put games away late. It was a great defensive play on Wilson, but obviously when you're running down the field in that situation, everything is about protecting the ball. He failed to do that, gave them another crack at it, let the defense win the game. If they can put all that together and offensively, basically put the opponent away, something they haven't really been able to do as of late, I think you're looking at a very tough, a real high-level contender in the AFC.
One more thing about penalties, and I think this was the Dallas-San Francisco game on Sunday night. You could clearly see I think it was the Cowboys, trying to keep his foot at the 1 yard, kind of like stopping himself. And he got penalized. And I think it may have been a San Francisco. It wiped out a touchdown. That's what it did. People are paying to see long touchdowns. They are not paying to see a guy that's 3 inches over a line.
Yeah, the word that keeps coming up to me, and I think I've said this far too often this weekend and the last night that I have, is pedantic. It's silly. Why are we doing this? You know, to the extent fans are paying money, they're investing their time, their recreational activities surround the sport. They want to talk about things. Now, that doesn't mean eliminate defense, because more points is better. What they want is the excitement. They want the spontaneity of this. To intentionally restrict a lot of that, to give us the feeling that we knew the flag went down, for example. We knew the flag went down on Calvin Austin's return. That, by the way, one of the worst defense kick returns I've ever seen at the NFL level.
Absolutely.
That was just awful. We knew the flag went down. Typically, it's going to be procedure, considering how quickly it seemed to have gone down. But he breaks to the outside. I thought he's gone. What's the penalty? So it's not even a situation where you feel like a celebration is warranted. We need to wait and see what the flag is going to be. Now, I know that that's typical, and, you know, a flag is a flag. You hope that there's a justified reason for it. In this case, there was. But when you're applying that to more situations now, you're taking more scoring plays off the board for things that just simply are not a part of what just happened. You know, for example, you talk to Steelers fans, one thing that they'll talk about is the amount of holding calls that are not called against T.J. Watt. Okay, you know, T.J. Watt's the hero, I get it. Most of the time it's not holding. T.J. Watt rips and dips a lot.
Right.
A defender can basically headlock him if he goes under his arm. That's the rule. It literally is in the rule book. They're allowed to do that. That's not holding. And on his shoulder backwards is not holding. Lots of things are not holding. But one of the biggest things is, if he is not pretty clearly going to make a play on the ball, they're not going to call holding either. That's what they're supposed to do. It's because they don't want the game to slow down. Holding doesn't exist unless there's a threat to the ball carrier. Really what that means is, by definition, they don't consider these things to be illegal unless they reach a certain level, of course. They don't consider them to be against the rules if it's not going to impact the play itself. So my question would be, you're giving out speeding tickets for going 56 and a 55 on illegal shifts, on formations, things like that we as watchers have gotten used to seeing. And ask any defensive player what Malik Neighbors did last night. There's no competitive advantage to that. If anything, he wasn't ready. He's not going to be as effective on that play. But the whole point in illegal motion is to make sure that he can't start the play moving if he was set beforehand. That's something a defensive player has to check and watch. That's giving them a competitive advantage. He's clearly going to this spot. He's clearly at this spot. The defense has ample opportunity to identify him as ineligible and know what's going on. You don't need to take a touchdown off the board for that. That's just not necessary. And they know that. They've never called that. Troy Aikman was saying that last night. Even when the rules expert said, well, he didn't stop for a full second, they don't stop for a full second, and you know that. They're not going to slow the game down for that. They're supposed to be up-tempo. They're pushing the envelope, and I understand that the letter of the rule might suggest otherwise. But Aikman's point really was, yes, but they don't call this. It's obvious what's going on. We know what's going on. You don't need to call a penalty on that. It wrecks the game. And to your point, things like that, a matter of inches, need to be officiated that closely. Should we be taking points off the board for things that do not directly contribute to the result of the play? I don't think that they should, and their history knows that too.
You're the best. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.